I'm about to support.
Hello? Okay, I see people are coming in. Good afternoon. Let's just wait a little bit for some more people to jump in and then we'll get started. I am Jane. I am from UNICEF. I'll be facilitating the session this afternoon. As you're jumping in and as we get started, just drop your name in the chat and where you are joining us from so we can get a bit of a sense on who's online. So good afternoon to everybody who's joining us. We are going to wait a little bit longer, just 2 minutes more, as we wait for people to join this call, and then we are going to get started. Karibuni sana. As we're waiting to get started, please introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know your name and where you are joining us from so we can get a sense of who is in the webinar with us this afternoon. Okay, so we're at 3:04. I think we should get started. And other people will join as we continue. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Jane Mgane. I am Innovation Officer at the UNICEF Tanzania Country Office. I am a young person. I am a Tanzanian woman, and I am passionate about supporting young people to build the skills that they need to thrive in the increasingly digital and digitally connected world. So this afternoon, we have a wonderful panel full of young people from Tanzania and from Kenya who are doing fantastic things in their careers, who have taken a moment to pivot and change when they have seen opportunities, and who are very excited to share their experiences with you all. So as we all know, we are living in a world that is incredibly digital and it's becoming increasingly digital and it's becoming smaller. We live in a global village. Over the last couple of years, we have seen a shift in the way that we work. There are people globally who are resigning from their jobs because they don't want to work in a traditional 9 to 5 linear type of progression job. And I'm also starting to read that there's a whole cohort of young people who are, looking at the never applying to conventional jobs because they want to find a job that kind of fits for them and works in for their life and their lifestyle. So in all of this, where so many new technologies are emerging, so many digital platforms are there, and this is creating so many opportunities for young people to create an income, a livelihood for themselves, be it for their traditional 9-to-5 job, be it a side hustle, or be it anyway just to look to earn a little bit of extra money. So this afternoon we have 4 young people who would like to share their experiences on how they have been able to build the skills that they need to thrive in their respective careers. So I'd like to introduce you to our panelists. Maybe they can switch on their cameras and wave hello, and we'll start with a round of introductions. So in no particular order, Cindy, Karibu, can you just give us an introduction, who you are and what you do?
Thank you so much, Jen. My name is Cindy. I am from Nairobi, Kenya, and I'm based in Nairobi. I am a product management professional. Right now, I am a product owner at Instill Education, which is a South African higher ed company. They operate in 3 countries. Yeah, that's the long and short of me. Thank you.
Asante sana, Cindy, welcome. And next, Ian, karibu.
Asante sana Jen. Kwa jina naitwa Ian Tarimo. I also come from Dar es Salaam, and currently I run an organization called DOT Tanzania, which also has a sister company called Tai Plus. Both of them, we use the power of storytelling and media technology to inspire behavior change. And I've been doing this for like 10 years. So when Jen said in the process we had to do something out of ordinary, there was a moment that we did that, and I would like to share with everyone. So I'm excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to share my story, but also to learn from the amazing panelists as well as the other young people. I will be reading your messages, so feel free to drop a message, and if you have a question or anything, and we'll be happy to learn from you. Asante sana, Jen.
Asante, Ian. And next we have CK.
Hi, everyone. I'm CK Richards. I am the former director of the European Business Group and heading for a new career in Geneva right now. So I am between jobs and on holiday at the moment. So very excited and very happy to be on this panel. Actually, I'm really excited to learn because I'm very curious about how people are dealing with it all and how we can all exchange ideas and learn from each other. Thank you.
Asante sana, CK. And last but not least, Princely, karibu.
Yeah, hello. My name is Princely Glorious. I'm the director at Honor Stories, co-founder of the Honor Stories group, which includes Honor Kesho, Honor Stories, and the Honor Stories Creator Network. A lot of what we do is around storytelling, but it's also around helping young people find creative professional jobs. So I'm super excited to be a part of this, super excited to share what I've learned over the past decade or so. And I'm quite excited to see just the variety of skills represented in the room, but also the variety of locations. I'm seeing people from Geita, from Morogoro, from Iringa, Nairobi even. So it's really great to see that this is not just something confined to Dar es Salaam, but it's about skilling the youth in Tanzania at large. Super excited to be part of this.
Asante sana. Thank you for the wonderful introductions. And I'm going to encourage everybody who's joined online. Please drop in your questions in the chat at any point. We will have a round of questions towards the end of this, but in between, as you're learning and as you're speaking, if there's anything, drop into the chat and we'll make sure that we get to your question. So just to open it, We've heard quite a lot from you already in your introductions, and perhaps we'll start with Ian. Ian, you've mentioned that you started Thai, and as you've started Thai, you have also now had to pivot and add an additional company in order to support your dream and vision. Can you please tell us about a time where you had to pivot in your career journey and learn a new skill?
Yes, thank you, Jen. Quickly, I think in these past 10 years, changing and learning new skills, I think it's an ongoing process. And I cannot mention only one moment where I had to change or learn a new skill. It's something that is ongoing if you want to truly serve others and if you want to truly grow in your own career. So a quick example is 2019. 2020, when we got COVID, for instance, as you said, Jen, in the introduction, we all saw what happened. We are not prepared for it, but people had to work from home. So we had to embrace digital tools to enable people to work from home, to learn how to, give people room to work on their own. And that process already had to force us to learn different leadership style. When you are used to go to the office in the morning, you see your team, you have something, it's easy to call a meeting and see face to face and discuss that. But when you have to do it online, it's a way different set of skills. But I think that is not very unique because most of the people face that. So particularly when it comes to why, for instance, we had to have a company, it's because for 5 years, we are running an NGO, and the goal was to change the NGO and become a social enterprise. But in 2018, when we are so ready to have the organization to be a social enterprise, there are some laws that did not allow us to change the organization, become social enterprise, because we wanted to have the financial sustainability. So you can imagine being in the moment where you are running an NGO for 5 years, you have acquired all that skills, a number of things now becoming comfortable to you, but because of the laws in the country, you cannot have the NGO into a social enterprise. So that moment we had to pivot and open a company. And as you all know, when you're running an NGO, it's some sort of a different mindset when you are running a company. So we had to start learning, for instance, business plan. We had to learn how to do marketing, from just communication to marketing. We had to learn a lot as a business person. So that forced us to stretch our thinking, our understanding, and also even how you behave and how you connect with your clients. So that moment is is one of the moments that we have experienced as an organization, also myself as a leader, that it's an ongoing process. So for me, it was not a surprise, because even before, for 4 years, DOT Tanzania used to go to different communities and tell the young people what to do. I remember we did this and we got a lot of feedback that young people are not as interested as we thought they would be. So we had also to pivot and start introducing technology. And that's why we found ourselves starting to learn how to use animations. We had to learn how to use creative tools. We had to learn how to be storytellers. So what I will say, I think your question is very simple, but if truly what I will say people should take down, changing in terms of what you do to something different, something more creative, is vital to any person who wants to grow themselves personally or professionally. Thank you very much, Jen.
Asante sana, Ian, for the interesting background on how you pivoted to make Thai what it is today. And as somebody else who has made a career pivot, Cindy, I understand you have a background in law. How did you end up being a woman in tech from the law background? And how did you manage that transition and that reskilling of yourself?
Thank you so much, Jane. Yes, I do have a background in law. Law school, I spent a total of, 5 years in law school. And that's when I learned I did not want to become a lawyer, but it was important to my parents at the time to see me wearing the big lawyer's garb, you know, the one that people take photos with and post on Instagram. And I also posted mine on Instagram for the record. But I do remember this time I was attached to the Supreme Court of Kenya, the one in Nairobi. And my boss at the time was experiencing a big disaster where court sessions weren't ongoing because they couldn't track which court documents had been served and which ones hadn't. So court had been delayed for around 2 weeks. So because I don't know how to program, I don't know how to code, essentially. So I put together a number of tools, tech tools that don't need coding, and presented to her something that worked, where people who serve the court documents are able to record every time they serve one. And if they can't serve one, they're able to indicate they couldn't serve it because of X and Y and Z reasons, which means that every week when my boss was preparing what court sessions were going to be happening, she was able to see real time that this week, everything that needs to be done has been done and we're good to go on this case. And it was so important for that to happen because then it meant that the wheels of justice could turn more efficiently. And that was the very first time I think I got an inkling into what the world of tech presented. And as someone who is passionately curious, I realized that if I wanted to have a career on my own terms, because law was not it, it was up to me to figure out how I was going to learn what I needed to learn so I could have a glorious career, right? So I transitioned from that into running my own startup for around 4 to 5 years. My startup was an edtech startup. And when you're running a business, quite like Ian, I think, mentioned before, there's so much you have to learn and you have to be on your toes at all times. So Google really is your friend, you and anyone else, you know. The difference between the version that I am now and the version that I want to grow into is literally just knowledge and skills and learning. And there's no way I can go back to get another bachelor's. It's out of the question. But what I do is 2 hours every morning of upskilling. I take a lot of online courses for free. So I transitioned from law into tech by engaging with tech in a position where I did not need to. And that opened up my mind into what was possible for me in the world of tech. So when I shut down my startup earlier in the year for a number of different reasons, I realized that the sum of skills that I had gained while running that startup, while building a team, while marketing across different countries, while, you know, choosing which technology to use and which one doesn't serve us, while being able to create a vision and go after it, and while also knowing when it was time to say, okay, it's time for the sunset, let's sunset this and go back to the drawing board. All that basket of skills, I was able to leverage it and get into tech without even needing to code. So there is no end to learning and education. In my current role, every single day, I have to learn something new or I become redundant. And I owe my career to my ability to follow my curiosity, meaning that I wouldn't be happy with how much I'm paid if I didn't take the time to learn what I know now. So the more I learn, the more I'm paid. And for anyone, that should be a good ambition to have, right? Like, if you have more money, just have better skills, right? So what could be more motivating for anyone to want to upskill than that? So that's the story of where I came from and how I transitioned into my current role.
Thank you, Cindy. I mean, some interesting things coming out. I love what she's saying about the passion and the curiosity to learn and to maintain that curiosity. But something that's really interesting that you said from your journey is that you saw an opportunity as you were working at the court, and you made that opportunity into something for yourself. Princely, this I think transitions quite nicely to you. I mean, you started a company in Tanzania. From that, you have rolled out 2 sister companies to support the work that you're doing. So can you tell us a little bit about that journey and reflect on any moment that you have had to pivot and learn new skills?
Yeah, so you know, we're pivoting every day, pretty much. But when we started Honor Stories 5 years ago, 6 if you count before we got registered. When we started Honor Stories, our original idea was to do a big play on media, right? We were doing a journalism startup. Our models were people like Vox Media in the US. Those were the kinds of people we're trying to model ourselves after. And something happened at the very beginning of our journey that kind of made us change or shift or pivot, as you put it, into the direction that we have taken, into becoming a storytelling company, into becoming a company that deals with the future of media, so virtual reality, augmented reality, and communication strategy, that kind of work. So when we were starting out, my partner and I, Tulanana and myself, we applied for this grant and we won it, right? So we won this grant for, I think it was around $55,000 US. We were announced as winners. It was backed by these, very big organizations, and they never gave us the money, right? They announced us as winners, etc., but they never gave us the money. And we were left there with our plan, our business models that had been written up, and just the ideas that we had had. And so one time, after the disappointment of essentially not getting money that you've been told you're getting, and you have all these plans and budgets and work plans and business models, etc., and then suddenly what was meant to be the seed funding for that just evaporates into stories and mizunguko mingi. So we had this conversation with my partner where we told ourselves that, listen, if we were going to do this business, if we were going to build this idea that we have into a business, and we were told that we were not going to get any money for it, would we do it? Are we passionate enough? Do we have the desire to see this thing that we want to do? Do we have the desire to see it in the world? And our answer was yes, we would do this without any seed funding. So what do we need to do to ensure that we can do this with or without this amount that we've been promised and not gotten? We realized very quickly that we will have to build something that people want to pay for. We'd have to have a model, a business model. We have to create a model that people have to pay for. And we pivoted, we shifted very quickly from the Vox model, the more journalistic model, and took what the core of our business is, which is storytelling, and said, okay, who can we find who will pay for storytelling? We were fortunate to have had an opportunity to kind of pitch to several large companies, and one of them was Vodacom. And we sat down with Vodacom, and now imagine the original idea was, we're going to build a journalism business, right? And now we're going to speak to Vodacom, and our pitch essentially was along the lines of, listen, what do you do when you go on YouTube and an ad comes up? Everybody in the room says, I wait 3 seconds, I press skip ad. I'm like, okay, so why do you spend millions and millions of your budget on creating stuff that people are going to skip? How about we help you tell stories instead? What's happening here is we're flexibly using our basic value, our unique value proposition, which is that we are excellent storytellers, some of the best in the business, and saying that instead of applying it to journalism the way we had thought we were going to, we can start looking for clients. We were very fortunate to have had them as one of our first major clients. And over time, within the first year of just doing that as a business, that entire amount that we had been told we're going to be given, we had made it from doing business, right? So just that shift of know there's nobody who's going to come and save you. There's nobody who's going to come and give you this funding, which we were excited about, and this grant which we're excited about. You're going to have to figure out a business that people are going to pay for. You're going to have to test your ideas in the market, not just in your head. It helped us to kind of shift and to actually ask ourselves, what is our unique value proposition? And how can we then package this in a way that somebody will say, you know what, I'm going to pay for this. So we've been doing that for the past 5 or 6 years. And I'm very glad that we've been able to kind of then grow from there. And I'm sure we'll talk a little more about all the other stuff that we've been able to do past that. But I thought this is something that I really wanted to share, because you could be facing a similar kind of disappointment, a similar kind of realignment. So you've got to start seeing those disappointments, those grants that don't come through, the no's that you get from people, the whatever disappointments you might face, as a realignment, as a redirection into using the unique value and the unique skills that you have to create businesses that will actually outlast you.
Asante sana, Princely. You told us a lot about perseverance, pivoting, being able to come back from, a setback and making it work for you. Now, CK hasn't had a setback, but she has told us she is going from Tanzania to Geneva, and those bring a whole host of different skills. So Cindy, could you tell us a bit about your experience on how, you have able to build the skills that you need to transfer from the European Business Council all the way to your new career in Geneva, and also looking at what do you do to make sure that your skills are relevant not only for work in Tanzania, but for work outside our borders? CK, karibu.
Hi, thank you guys. Well, first, I think the really important thing is being versatile as a person. And we talk a lot about digital skills and a lot about what people should learn in terms of sort of skill set that we could learn. But we don't talk about ourselves and characters and how we need to be able to receive these skills. So, for example, I have been a mover with my career. I've moved a lot. I came from Ireland to Tanzania. Actually, it was Mexico, Tanzania, Mexico, UK, Ireland, Tanzania, and now Geneva. But it's really all down to how versatile you could become. We need to go with the trends. We need to be able to have that shift, especially the mind shift, where this is working, great. This is not working. I need to change to what is working very quickly and be able to go with the flow very quickly, especially in jobs. And some of the things that I would like to really stress on in terms of skills and learning is people skills. We really put this aside in many times, but we spend more time at work than we do at home. Ideally, our normal working day is about 7 hours, usually full-time work, but now people work way more than that, meaning you spend more time at work than you do at home for a lot of people, but also people that is changing, and there are a lot of people able to work from home or online and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, the one common denominator is people. Having good people skills does set you apart from a lot of everybody else. Being able to relate well with people, being able to understand people, being able to agree to disagree, being able to put aside personal feelings and concentrate on the actual agenda ahead, being able, just the ability to take people as they are and understand what is the goal and how you're meant to work on that goal to get to where you need to, but also to bring the people with you along with you. You have a goal to achieve, but you need your team to work with you. How do you get this to happen? I think this is really, really important. And as we go more and more digital, a lot more work is done online, yes, but then again, it still has to go through people. It still has to work and assessed by people. So it's really important. The other thing is communication and network. Communication is super important in how we bring ourselves. So as we become versatile, we become able to sort of go with the wind in the skill sets that we learn. And I like how Cindy says every morning she gets up and has 2 hours where she learns a new skill and learns a free course online. Absolutely brilliant. We really do underestimate these values that we have, or these freebies, these really good value addition options that we have online these days. However, with this, we can learn other things. Communication is absolutely vital. If you're trying to put an agenda ahead and you do not know or do not have the right skills on how to communicate this that you're trying to put ahead, it's almost failed before it's even begun. So how do we best communicate our agendas or what we want or our work, or how do we deal with people? So learning to work with people and learning to communicate really does set you apart. It does not matter how qualified you are. You know, they talk a lot about intelligence. We need to be intelligent. We need to understand, you know, you need to have your academic degrees. You need to have all that done, but you forget the social intelligence. This is vital, and this is where people skills, communication skills does come into play. So as I would really love to urge young people to learn new skills, albeit coding, all this IT stuff. There's amazing stuff out there. So it's really good that people are learning all these things, but do not forget the vitals. Do not forget the basics. Do not forget that on a daily basis, you will be needing to communicate. You need to be able to communicate. You need to be able to stand out. If you're trying to put your point across, everybody needs to be able to understand you. We do not work on, when we talk communication, a lot of people assume you have to have, you know, this big word English type of stuff. You need to be able to make this, I don't know, large words. I have a 7-year-old who constantly has to use words like scrumptious to seem like she's put a point across. And I'm thinking, yeah, it tastes good, will do me fine. But let us try and simplify language. Let us try to communicate in ways that we are able, where people can understand us. And the basic communication is communicate to everyone as if you're communicating to an 8-year-old, so that everybody can understand and being able to put your points across. But also, how do you communicate what you're trying to say for people to get your point and for people to follow you along? As a leader, and young people, leadership is not for older people, it's not for managers, for bosses, for all that. No, it's for all of us who have not, when I say agenda, I don't mean like, you know, we all are conniving to do something evil and stuff like that. But I say an agenda because we all working towards something. I mean, we are working towards innovation. That's an agenda. We are working towards storytelling agendas. We are working towards, from communication, investment backgrounds and policy. That again is an agenda for me. So we all working towards something. How do we ensure that what we're working towards is received and well communicated? But again, in all this that we're working on, the network, your network is your net worth. And without that network, you're not able to put things across. So it all boils down to people again. But now that you've learned to work with people, brilliant. Now that you know how to communicate with them, even absolutely brilliant. Now you need to bring them along to your table. I urge young people to ring up for coffees, you know, hey, how are you? What are you doing? Can we grab a coffee? Expand your network. Attend networking events. If there isn't any, put one together and go to it. Invite people, put on a flyer. It's like about what, 20,000 to create a flyer? And a lot of people like super digitally survey these days that they only do themselves. And I cannot do that to save my life. But I'm sure a lot of young people are able to do this. If you do not have a networking thing around your age group or around what you like to do, create one, go for it. And the more people you know, the more people recognize your work, the more value of your work it adds to it. Let us get off social media. We are so much into Instagram, and my God, I can name the list. Everybody knows those. But we hide behind these things, and we think the more present we are on social media, the more people know about us. But we forget that on social media, no, people are not connecting. They know of you, They can see you, they can see your work, but they're not connecting to your work. There are some people who are doing, digital marketing, and that's great. They can say, yeah, there's a lot of people communicating. However, you do need that people engagement. And we saw that with COVID, when no one was going out anymore. No one could give another person a hug anymore. And no one, that people connection got lost. And it was absolutely vital that we got that back. As humans, we are people, we are people's people. So I urge young people, as we're looking, as the world is turning digital and everything is really digitalized, and I'm seeing a lot of people doing wine on Zoom or something like this, but I truly encourage people skills, dealing with people, communication and networking. This will set you apart from the rest, that's for sure. So that's all I have to say.
Fantastic, CK. I mean, I think you really also grounded us back. I mean, we always focus on, can I code? Can I build something? Can I do a graphic design? Can I go on Canva and build something? Can I set up a virtual online store? But you remind us of the importance of getting back to basics, learning the communication skills, learning how to network, making use of your immediate resources and the people around yourself. I can see that Princely, you have opened your mic. Did you want to jump in now, or?
Not necessarily. I just added I put some stuff in the chat there. One thing is, one of my favorite quotes that kind of is very much in line with what CK is saying is by this guy called Naval Ravikant. I'll write his name down so you check him out. He's absolutely brilliant. And he says, the tools for learning are abundant. It's the desire to learn that's scarce. So you've got to check yourself, right? What's scarce is not the tools to learn any skill. With the internet, you can learn literally anything you want to learn. And so it is the desire to learn that is scarce. You might not be able to get the credential, like any credential you want, if you without paying for it. But in terms of actually learning the skills, there's literally nothing stopping you from doing that, other than your own desire and your systems. Because our environments, our systems are actually they're actually what keep us. We fall to the level of our systems, right? Like you might have all these different desires. I don't remember who was saying this, but somebody was talking about how if it was just our goals that helps us get where we want to go, then all of us would be Bahresas, right? Because we have the same goals as Bahresa, right? I have the same goals as Elon Musk. I have the same goals as all these people that we look up to and admire. But it's the systems and the environments we place ourselves in that actually allow us to make these goals come into play. So I've also put a book there. She talked about social capital, about connecting with people. There's this brilliant idea called never eat alone. And it's all about how that human connection, like every time you want to go grab a lunch, grab it with someone, have a chat with them, call somebody for coffee, just spend that time you spend eating, always spend it with someone else. It doesn't even have to be just, as it could be strategic, but it doesn't necessarily have to be strategic, because these things compound, right? The social capital you build compounds over time. So yeah, my addition is starting to become its own little segue. So let me hand it over back to you, Jane.
No, it's a great segue because, I mean, we have young people on this call from Gaeta, Morogoro, Dar es Salaam. And I think sometimes we have to just get it down to a bit more practical sense, right? So you have put down some key books. I have seen that Cindy has put down a key book for her, Atomic Atoms, that really kind of helps you think about your skills and how you build them. But from all the panelists, I can start with Cindy, because you mentioned going online to learn some skills. What are some of the go-to resources that you have leaned on to learn and build skills?
So this is my favorite question, because I have become really intentional with my growth plan and how I map out my goals. So there's this platform, is called Notion. And in Notion, I have a place where I have listed Cindy's growth plan, right? And underneath there, I have a lot of different subpages, but for the context of this conversation, there's something I have said, these are some of the high value skills I want to learn, right? And then I've included a list of some of the skills I want to learn between now and the end of the year. In there are skills I'm mildly familiar with, some I'm a bit more advanced than others, but others are completely new to me, right? And underneath each of the skills, if you open it up, there's a page where, you know, to do, doing, and done. So every morning I go to what's on my to-do list today. And under each of the skills, I already have links to places I want to learn, Twitter threads, places where I'm practicing my thing. Even if it's a question or an exam I want to do, it's all listed under there. And I don't press myself to complete one skill in one day. I give myself time, and my months are organized thematically. So for this month, I was focusing on some specific product related courses, and I found a platform called Product School that has a lot of free, really good product management courses. And I said, this is what I'm going to be focusing on for the next 2 weeks. Next month, it's in analytics. I know the basic and I can read a dashboard, right? But I want to know how to create a dashboard. I want to be able to know how to clean data. I want to know how to be able to visualize it using some of the top tools in the market, you know. So I have become very intentional in mapping out, where do I want to go for this phase in my career, right? And I have put it in writing, everything I want to be able to learn. And every time I'm online, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, even on Instagram, and I come across something that I know, damn, this is a learning moment, I can link it to my Notion, and then I can look at it later. That's the thing about something like Notion. You don't have to go into it immediately, right? It's linked. The way you can share to WhatsApp is the same way you can share to Notion, right? So I link it that way on my Twitter, on my LinkedIn, everywhere, even anywhere on the web. That's what I do. If it is in something that I hadn't mapped out that I want to learn, but it's something interesting, I still put it there, because you don't have to go to Udemy to learn something. Twitter has taught me significantly more than sitting through a Udemy course would, because you're able to hear from people like you, likely, who've gone through a journey, and you can be able to see how their perception of their journey has been. And if they can do it, why can't I do it? So being very intentional about what you want to learn and how has been really critical. But I would also like to echo a lot about what CK has said. Most careers, like 99%, you can be the best programmer in the world, but at the end of the day, you're going to be judged by your relationship management skills, right? And one of the people, that's how you see sometimes mediocre people are, you know, you meet someone and they're in a high position and you're like, how did you get here? You know, because I feel like I know more than you, and they're supposed to be kind of be like my boss's boss. So how in the world are you there, right? But if you really dig deeper, those people are really good at managing relationships, at knowing how to create networks that back them up. And the higher you go up the quote unquote career food chain, the more you're paid for how you can manage relationships rather than your actual hard skills. So I'm just going to echo what CK has said. And anyone here wants to have a career in product management, the number one thing you'll have to do is learn how to manage people you're working with in your relationship. You know, sometimes it looks like babysitting people's emotions, but you have to be tactical about it, right? You can't just bulldoze your way around that, right? So those are some of the things that I think are really important. And just finally, when it comes to the networking thing, one of the things that I do, and I think someone has asked, how do you network as an introvert, right? I come across as an extrovert, but I think deep inside I'm introverted. I slide into people's DMs a lot on Twitter, on on LinkedIn, on Instagram. If you know something that I think I also want to know, I'm going to slide into DMs and introduce myself. I'm like, yo, I really like how you did X and Y and Z, or I like how you shared about this and this and this. Would you like to catch up? Right? And I've had people sliding into my DMs. And when you do and tell me, hey, Cindy, I want to get into product, I am more than happy to schedule time in my day. I think it was yesterday. I had a 1 hour long conversation by someone I've never met before. They just slid into my LinkedIn DMs and they wanted to get into product. And I gave them the raw version of what my journey has been like, the dark stuff, the brilliant stuff, that I'm still trying to figure this out stuff, because people are more willing to help than you could recognize. And more people are really, really willing to put you on, you know, especially people who are quote unquote moving forward in their lives. They want to bring as many people. And if they say, if they ghost you, they don't respond, it's fine. You know, I mean, it's not like you're going to die. You're not going to be choked in your sleep and die because nobody responded to your email. No, but what if they say yes? That's an opportunity to create a new relationship in a new organization, in a new industry. And you'll be the first person they reach out to if they want to recommend someone for an opening in their job. And there's an invisible job market that we keep talking about. And you want to be in that invisible job market. So you don't have to keep sending out CVs and resumes and stuff, right? So as much as it's possible, learning how to build relationships with human beings, because human beings are the ones who hold the keys to whatever doors. They can open a door for you when they can just flow in, you know, between where you are, but you want to be prepared. You don't want someone recommending you, you know, and speaking highly of you. And then when you get into the room, you're surprised, deer in the headlights, you know. You want people to be happy to recommend you because you're also good at your shit. So being able to take time to learn your stuff so that you're worthy of a good recommendation, it's a balance, and both of them are critically important, in my opinion. So
amazing. Thank you so much, Cindy. And I think I'll just ask the same question we'll start with Ian. What are some of your go-to resources to learn some new skills?
So I would say that for me, what has actually been working, and because for over 10 years, I've been working with young people. And I would say because in the early times, I was working with volunteers, so which means at a short period of time and off they go, So I have some sort of a database of over 1,000 young people. And I would say that based on that, I agree with everyone that has said in terms of the importance of having the social skills. They're very important. That's something I wanted to insist. They're very important. As someone who have never been employed, but someone who have been employing people, deciding who to hire and who to fire, I know for sure that there are people who are the best in Tanzania. For instance, let me just give an example. We are talking of animation. I know people who are the best animators in Tanzania, but we had to let them go because they had so much toxicity, they had poor relationship with the rest. We had to let them go, though they have technical skills of no one in the team. So it's important to have those relationships CK is talking about, because at the end of the day, we are social animals, and it's important to know how to relate with others, because at the end of the day, there's no one-man show. We have to work with others, and the people have to be comfortable, and you have to be professional when you're working with others. So that's something that is very important. I think the other thing that I want to say, I think for me, it's pure about the desire. I was actually typing something before you called my name. I feel like at the end of the day, it's about the desire. If you really, really need something, especially in this age of technology, there's nothing that you can't access. As long as you have the right skills and you have the desire, because at the end of the day, you'll have the disappointments. You have the disappointments, but are you willing to let go of your ego and be humble enough to correct yourself, to upgrade yourself and move forward? So for instance, myself, as much as I've been working as a social entrepreneur for 10 years, every morning I have 1 hour to 30 minutes every morning for myself to learn something that I don't know. So it means that if you see me today in the next 7 years, in the next 7 days, maybe I'll be better on something 7 times or different 7 things that I really want for my work. Because when in the world of technology, things are changing so rapid that you have no idea. The moment you master one skill, tomorrow something else is on trend. And if you want to continue being relevant, it's up to you to have that desire to learn. So there's no saying that, for instance, I know some people that when they get there, before they get job, they're so pumped up to learn new things. The moment they get job, they start missing job. They're not professional. They're always trying ways to not even giving them a book and tell them there's this new book you should learn. They don't want even to read a book. So how are you going to be competitive? How are you going to go to know even how to manage others as a leader if you're not learning new skills? So for me, it's part of my value. It's part of, if I mention 5 values, one of them is to learn. And I learn from so many things. I learn from how I do things because I take time to evaluate. Yesterday, I was talking to Jane. I think she was not happy. Is it because the way I communicated? Is it something that I need to be also reflect on what is happening? It's part of my learning. But also I need to learn from champions. I love to watch football, and I always feel like I watch I like sports basically, but I feel like the way I watch is always different because for me, as much as I'm entertained, I'm also in the mood to learn how champions act. Today they win, you'll hear them saying, "Thank you, my coach, thank to God, I'm happy it worked out." Tomorrow they felt terribly, they say, "These guys were better than us. We are going back. We're going to be prepared. We're going to learn new skills," and we come back. So I always want to associate myself with people who are champions because at the end of the day, the way they behave is how, if you want to be a champion, you have to behave like a champion. So if you go and see, let's say, Muhammad Ali as someone who is known for boxing, if you read about his story, he has a lot of failures, but he had this desire to be on top, and he had to learn every day different techniques from different coaches, and he was very disciplined. So, in order to not be everywhere, I also like to learn things that I need of my work. So we want to produce higher quality of animation. I need to know where can I get resources. I want to know how to make my team more engaged. I need to learn either from someone who is good in that or because there are already books of people who have done these things. There's nothing new in this world as long as we are ready to learn. So basically for me, I changed from something that I have to wait to learn, but to make it part of me constantly to keep learning. Thank you, Jane.
Asante sana, and for those practical tips. And just quickly, just from CK, you have spoken a lot about the importance of social capital and networking. What do you recommend, or what are your key go-to tools to help you build that have helped you build that skill?
I wish I had something good to say, like books. I wish I said I'm an avid reader and all that. But I'm not. And honestly, I think books have been good for me, but for a long time, I stopped reading because I did my master's at a difficult time and it sort of put me off reading altogether. But I like to read short articles. And for those people who do not enjoy reading books as much as I do, I think short articles are really good. You know, the briefings about books, you know, and there's a lot of materials online now. There's, of course, Udemy is another little nice spot. I think I'm not as techy as others on here, so I wouldn't be able to say I use this app or whatever. No, I do not. But I mostly learn from people. And this has been my biggest help and support. I have mentors. I'm surrounded by mentors. I constantly ask for mentorship, and I believe we can never learn enough. But learning from people allows you to understand real-time experience. And as much as you could read an article on something, it's even better to discuss it with another person and say, you know, I read this on leadership. What has been your experience? And that ability for someone to share their experience, for you to understand what it's been like, how it's worked for them, and how practical it is, and how you have to define it for your own purpose or for your own needs, is another brilliant thing. But many times we assume that others, I mean, we cannot necessarily learn as much from others' experience, but if you make use of mentorships, this becomes absolutely invaluable. It brings it down to, how do we add value to ourselves? How do we do the value addition to ourselves? I mean, I think everybody has a degree almost right now, a master's even more. It's becoming that having a PhD is the thing now. But in learning and in upgrading our skill sets, we also value add to ourselves. But in the learning, how do we translate these learnings? No matter how learned you are, if you cannot translate that learning to others, then it's almost useless. I mean, if you're a teacher and you can't teach properly, then that's a loss. If you are, I don't know, major scientist and you're not able to communicate that properly or being able to translate that properly, then it's a loss. So mentorship is another thing that we really, really put it down on, and we don't look up to it so much, or we don't do much of it, or we don't request much of it. And a lot of young people do request to be mentored or mentorship, but many of them do not really want to put in the work. So in that understanding, where you could ask somebody to mentor you, but you need to also understand that they're taking time from their busy schedules and to share their experience and skill sets with you. How do you take that in the most valuable way to get something for you and for them as well? So I think for me, we need to look at these practicalities on mentorship and learning and value addition. This will be one thing I would say that has been good for me.
Thank you. I mean, I love the addition seeking mentorship, and to add to the seeking mentorship, it doesn't always have to be somebody that you at a senior level. It could also be from your peers. I think an important thing is in building your skills is to look at the people around you and seek feedback from them. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Where do you think I could stretch? I think that in itself is accessible to almost absolutely anybody and everybody. And I see that the chat is getting quite interesting. There has been a question, there's been two questions that have been posed, but there has been one specifically by Patrick, who asked, how does one cultivate the culture to continuously build the desire to learn? And I can see Princely said he'd like to get back and explain a bit more. So Princely, over to you.
Okay, great. So I think one of the key things that I would want everybody to kind of go home with is that the environment, your environment determines so much of your outcomes. A lot more than you imagine. And when I say your environment, I'm talking about the people you surround yourself with. I'm talking about the places you frequent. I'm talking about the things you feed your mind, right? The information that you feed your mind with, the books that you read or don't read, the places you go, the people you surround yourself with. Essentially, your environment sets a baseline for your life. Right? We hear a lot about, you being an average of the 5 people you spend, the most time with. But it's not just that. It's beyond that. You are also the average of the books that you read or you don't read. You're also the average of the places you frequent or you don't frequent. Because the things that you surround yourself with kind of set the baseline for your life. I'll give you a simple example. Let's say think of yourself as a plant. If I take, I have some plants outside here. Like I have a big ass coconut tree, right? And if I took that coconut tree when it was maybe this small, and I put it in a bowl, that coconut tree would not outgrow that bowl, right? If I took it and put it into a larger size pot, that coconut tree would grow a little higher, but it wouldn't outgrow that pot. But if I take that same coconut tree and I put it outside and I feed it properly and I put the right amounts of water, etc., it grows into this massive thing, 20 feet tall, taller than a building, right? And so the potential that you have is one side of the equation, but the other side of the equation is your environment. What have you surrounded yourself with? And so you've got to take stock of that. You've got to take stock of, are you feeding your mind with the right things? I hear a lot, for example, I often hear people complain about Twitter, for example. Say, Twitter, najua Twitter Tanzania, wa Tanzania sijui nini, wanaongelea tu mademu, au sijui wanaongelea tu mpira, au sijui whatever it is, right? There's a lot of those different complaints, but we fail to forget that the algorithm feeds us what we've expressed interest in, right? And I'm always like very surprised because I'm like, my experience on Twitter is so different. Like the people that for me, Twitter is somewhere that I go and I interact with some of the finest minds in the world, people who I admire, who I read their books, etc. And they're putting their thinking there for free. People like, I'll put some of their names there so you can follow them as well. People like Nassim Taleb, people like Navar Ravikant, some of my friends like Dandala. It just shows you essentially that it's especially in this world where algorithms are feeding you what you express interest in, that the things that you surround yourself with will compound, they will multiply over time. And then when I talk about systems, what do I mean by systems? I mean, in that room over there, just behind me, I use that as my home office, and I've got a stack of books that I keep in there. And I make sure that every day I read something, right? And people always ask me, even my partner always asks me, where do you get the time to do this? A lot of people ask me, like, where do you get the time to read while you also have all these other things that you're running? And you realize that if you make the time to do it, if you put aside 30 minutes every day, which is something that a lot of people have repeated, that they set aside some time, intentional time to develop themselves. And for me, it's a lot about reading, but it's not just about reading, because reading is one thing. And in fact, this is something I wrote about recently, that reading is just one part of the equation. It's not just about reading books. It's actually about synthesizing what you've read. And how do you synthesize? What is the best way to synthesize? The best way to synthesize what you've read is by writing. So one of the ways you can improve the sharpness of your mind, one of the ways that you can share perhaps the most basic, most fundamental, most important skill that you can learn in your life is writing. Because writing is how you communicate the ideas that you have in your head with other people, both when you're in school and when you're at work. Writing is how you separate yourself from the masses of people. Writing, even more importantly than all of that, writing is thinking. We often think that sitting down and whistling away, thinking through things just in our head equals thinking. But sit down with a pen and a paper or a computer like this and a blank page, and you realize that the ideas in your head aren't as clear as you think. When you start putting them down into an essay, right? Right now, when I tell you, like, okay, well, what are the 21st century skills? We talk about the 4 C's. We talk about critical thinking, creativity, communication, and what's the 4th one? And collaboration, right? And this is something that, yeah, okay, you can have it there in your head. Critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, communication. But if I tell you to kind of break that down for me in an essay, and explain it to me in a way that kind of makes sense to me, you start to realize that it will take you hours to actually make it make sense, right? So perhaps the most fundamental skill, the first skill that I would brush up on as a young person is my writing skills. It has helped me get jobs, but not just get jobs. It's helped me get paid way above the market rate, because when people read the clarity of my thinking, they say, okay, this is somebody I can get behind. These are ideas that are well synthesized. So yeah, read, improve your environments. Where do you live? Who do you surround yourself with? What are you reading? Who do you follow on Twitter, on Instagram? Who are you hanging out with? What are you watching? You know, what are the stuff that is surrounding you? Because it shapes you. It's the baseline for your life. And then put systems in place. Set intentional periods of time where you can develop yourself. And then finally, sit down and think using a pen and a paper, or a computer, a keyboard. Write, use the you know, like all the different things, all the different ideas that you're having. If there's one thing I would do every day, is to sit down and write. It will improve the quality of your life. It will improve your income. It will improve almost everything, just because you will actually be thinking.
That is awesome. And I think we just keep coming back to the critical skills matter and the basics matter. We've heard communications, we've heard the social capital, networking, speaking, writing. And I think this comes again, I'll just like to just jump in because everybody has spoken a lot about reading, you know, the importance of reading, take time to read. Often I find myself, I don't have the time to read. But what I do find that I have time for is I have half an hour while I'm washing dishes, maybe 20 minutes on my commute to work. And it's those idle moments where you can actually use it to build a skill and do something. And for me, I will listen to a book, listen to a podcast, and use that individual quiet time to also support my own skills building as I'm going about my day-to-day work. And we're having quite a few questions coming up in the chat. I think let's just get to them. The first one is from Dennis, who asked us quite a while back. Apologies, Dennis, for only getting back to you now. And this is for any of the panelists, so feel free. He's asking, how would you advise the youth to change their mindset and transition to social innovations or enterprises? Does anybody want to take on that question? Maybe Ian, you have a social type of business. So how would you advise youth to pivot to this?
Sorry, Jen, can you repeat the question?
The question is, how would you advise the youth to change their mindset to transition to social innovations or enterprises?
So it really depends. So if someone, let's say, is running an NGO, it means the first thing is to look into how they're going to have financial sustainability. And having that, goal will force you to think on how you're going to make money and you're going to have financial sustainability. So in that sense, because you're already in the non-profit, and if you think of how you're going to create to make money, it means it will help you to have both. So be thinking of the 3 P's: profit, people, and planet. And that's how you can easily start thinking on how you're going to make money. I think Princely already explained at first when they had this idea, they were expecting grants, they were not able to get that grant. So I think they asked themselves a very good question. So in case nobody gives us money, in case we don't get any grants, how are we still going to make an impact? And that's how they thought of changing their product in such a way that in the market, someone will be willing to buy. And if you are running your own company, it's also to just align your company with a social outcome. So if you're selling charcoal, it's very much related to, let's say, conserving environment. So how are you sustainably going to sell charcoal as you're also planting trees? So you're replacing the damage that you're making. It has to be aligned at the end of the day, whether you're coming from the mindset of an NGO or the mindset of the company, is to think about the moment you start thinking on how you're going to be successful in the 3 Ps, that's the profit, people, making sure that you conserve the environment, automatically it will help you to have the social enterprise mindset and even what you're going to do. Number 2, I would also recommend that if you want to run a social enterprise, probably you have to do your research to understand what are the successful social enterprise in the market, let's say in Tanzania or in East Africa. What are the successful social enterprise and what are they good at? What are they doing? And then also look into yourself and your team. What strength do you have? What are you passionate about in your community that you want to solve, but at the same time make profit? I think if you're able to question those, to do those 2 phases of planning and asking those questions from the inner desire to help the community, but also to make profit and make the planet a better place to live, you are going to be a successful social entrepreneur. Thank you, Jane.
Ante, and I can see I have a hand from CK.
Yeah, thanks, Jane. So I just wanted to add to what Irna said, and he put it really nicely, that you need to have a plan and a problem solving, a solution to a problem. I remember once reading an article that this guy was talking about African religion and how a lot of Africans pray to God for miracles, and they spend most of their time in churches, day and night praying for miracles, and miracles are not happening. And I am a Christian, a very strong one at this, and I'm not trying to talk about against Christians when I say this, but what I'm trying to say is you need to be able to do something for you to get results of, and even God blesses the work of our hands. There's a reason that quote is in the Bible for that reason. So as he says, we need to look at the problems around us, and God knows they are not in short supply, and how we can think of solutions to these problems. And this is how we can sort of either kill the poverty cycle or come up with successful solutions, where we need to be, but it needs to be very practical. And a lot of the social enterprises that we've seen on social media and with us as well have been real-time solutions to real problems. I know these guys who recycle rubbish to generate so this sort of new modern charcoal. I forget the exact name of them, but they use rubbish for that. I know other guys who use rubbish to generate fly farming, to get and from absolute nothing, they are creating wealth. And we all know our situation in Tanzania, and in particular Dar es Salaam. We are not in short supply of rubbish. There's rubbish everywhere, but one person really nicely thought of the idea of fly farming and create animal feed from it, which is making millions at the moment. So it's to encourage young people, yes, pray to God, definitely. For those who are Christians, Muslims, or whoever, for those who are religious, definitely keep your religion. But look at the problems that you have and think of the solution to them. And this is how people are making a lot of it. Look at Uber, for example. Before you needed to call a taxi, you needed to go to a taxi stand and get a taxi from there. And then mobile phones came, and then you could call your taxi driver and, could come and whatever. Then the price depended on what he thought on the day and how he felt on the day. But now you just, call it and it comes, and it calls you when you're ready to come out. It's a solution to something very usually conventionally different from how we thought of it. We do not have to reinvent the wheel. For social enterprises, really, we are surrounded by so many things that we could have solutions for, and they could be either profit-oriented or not for profit, but there is quite a lot of solutions in hand. Thanks, Jane.
Thank you so much for that, Cindy. And questions keep coming in, so let's just keep going with some of the questions that we're hearing from the floor. Amiri, I do see your hand up. We'll get back to you shortly. But in the meantime, we have a question from Amani, and his question is directed at Cindy. And he's saying, I heard you talking about the importance of understanding relationships and managing people. How can one become really good at managing the two essentials? That is, how can one become good at managing relationships and managing people?
There's a book that I read that blew my mind on this subject, and the book is called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. A very close cousin of it is another book called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Carnegie, I don't know. The guy is called Dale, right? So the whole premise of this book is based on how to build relationships and how to nurture them. And at the core of these two things is how to do both in a way that is authentic, in a way that doesn't come across as kissing ass. We've all come across people who, we call them brown noses, people who, when the boss is around, they have one personality, right? They're the most delightful, most helpful folks. And then when the boss is not around, it's like the mask is off and all that. Or you have come across you've come across people, they're giving you a compliment, but you're not sure it's a compliment really, because it doesn't come across as authentic. Or you've met someone who dressed really nicely that day, and that day you just came out of the house like this, and you're like, damn, you look good, where are you going? And like, oh, thank you, you too. The you too, it's not authentic, right? So instead of them just accepting and saying, thank you, I'm going somewhere, and they feel obligated. So you don't want to be the kind of people who feel obligated to throw out compliments, throw out help without being authentic, right? So going back to the question, one of the things that has really helped me build relationships is being able to lean into difficult conversations, especially with people at work. And how this happens is, if there's a conversation that I'm a bit anxious to have, it's easier for me to lean into it instead of stay up at night worried, oh my God, there's that Slack or email I am supposed to be opening and I won't open it. I'm going to pretend I've not seen it, right? But if I, with sometimes help, very anxious, I open it, I read it, and I'm like, okay, let me talk about this. Or I send out a meeting request and say, hey, I'm sensing that we're having a bit of a challenge in XYZ. I'd like to understand your perspective on this, because I feel like I may be misunderstanding you in some way. Could you help me understand? That way people feel that what they get with you is the real deal. If you have the ability to lean into conversations that are challenging, that are hard to have, people feel more confident in your abilities to be a leader. They feel like they can trust you, and trust is at the center of relationship building. The other thing could be being very effusive with praise. Even if someone is not directly in your team, being able to point out something that you can genuinely see is good. Let's say someone that they dresses, with terrible shoes, but the tie they have on is bomb, instead of just saying, you look nice, right? You can say, I like that tie and I like how it complements your skin tone. Going directly, clearly, making your compliments land because they're specific and they're authentic, and you make people feel like you see them. Or, I really like how you write reports. There's a level of detail that you put into your work that I'm really trying to learn, so keep doing it because I'm really learning a lot from you. That's who doesn't like being admired, who doesn't like feeling like they've done a good job, who doesn't like feeling appreciated, or it will come across like this. Hey, I'm really struggling with managing one of my team members, and I've seen the way you relate to your team. Could you just talk me through how you manage, those relationships? Because your meetings are really fun, and I'm hoping to be able to have a bit of that vibe in my own team. Could you take me through it? There's no bigger compliment than someone coming to you asking you for advice, right? So all those things are like planting seeds. in people and them feeling like I can trust this person likes me, so I like them back, or this person is ready to admit when they've done wrong. You know, like there's a time I made a recommendation for a tool we needed at work. The tool wasn't a good fit. So I had to, and it's spoken so highly of that tool, you know, and there was like, this is going to, you know, those guys are going to see what I'm made of. I'm going to implement this and it's going to be glorious. They're going to be using this and they're going to be thinking of CD. And it just bombed, right? Now I had to go crawl back. I'm like, guys, I know I spoke highly of this, but I'm going to take responsibility for the fact that I didn't do enough research and I don't think it's going to be a fit anymore, right? This is what I've learned and this is what I recommend as the way forward. It's in those moments where you're willing to put your heart on your sleeve, to compliment someone, to admit you're wrong, to lean into difficult conversation, to offer a lending hand, to give effusive praise that make people feel like you're safe to be around. They can trust you, that you see them, that you respect them, that you like them as people. And people tend to be reciprocal. So at the end of the day, be more interested in people and what's going on with them than trying to be interesting in yourself and feeling like you're at the center of the universe. So I'm hoping that helps, but that's like the toolkit I use at work. It's not easy, to be honest, because sometimes you have to put your own ego aside. And as someone who carries a big ego, it's like a daily death to self, just so that I can become a better person. So I hope it helps whoever asked that question.
Thank you. It was Amani. So thank you so much on, you know, giving us some nuggets on how we can build those people skills. I am seeing the questions keep coming in, and we have another one from Edward. And he is asking to whoever on the panel feels like they can give a great answer. What do you guys think about automation and how is it affecting different skills? Does anyone want to take? Okay, Princely's volunteering himself with this one.
I'll take that one because it's something that I work in as well. So part of what we do at Kesho is work with artificial intelligence and work with the future of media, the future of storytelling. So this, you know, stuff like extended reality, virtual reality, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, all these things that you hear are coming to take your jobs, right? And right now, there is like AI, the level that AI has gotten to. Back in the day, we used to think that AI, artificial intelligence, would come and take the lower skilled jobs first, right? That used to be the thinking. We used to think that robots would replace people doing lower skilled jobs first, and then the more mental skills, the doctors, the lawyers, the artists, you know, the creative skills, those ones we thought would be the ones that are coming, you know, like it will take years for artificial intelligence to get to that point. Now I want you guys to go and check out DALL-E if you haven't. I've put it on the chat. It's just the complete reversal of anything we'd ever thought of. In fact, what artificial intelligence right now is best at is those higher critical thinking type skills, creative type skills. With things like DALL-E, I hope I'm not losing the room here when I'm talking all these tech words. But the basic insight here is that artificial intelligence is coming and is here and is replacing the creative jobs, the critical thinking jobs. There are trials right now of artificial intelligence lawyers, artificial intelligence doctors to prescribe medicine because it can work much better with big data than humans can, right? But the thing is, one thing that we're finding as maybe a glimmer of hope is that it will almost always require human input of some sort, right? And what we are going to have to do is one of these skills, one of the most important skills that we're going to have is flexibility and adaptability. We're going to have to learn how can we make these tools work for us. So for example, with DALL-E, DALL-E can paint anything you want. Artificial intelligence can you just describe it. You describe anything you want and it will paint it for you. But we're learning that different people have different skills at getting artificial intelligence to paint specific things or to do specific things, right? And so there are new fields that are coming up, like prompt engineering and prompt artistry. So what you will have to do is to figure out what are the advantages a human has over automation, over artificial intelligence, over all these other nanis, and that you become flexible to use that. So you're constantly learning and adapting, which is one thing that you are, even as you are now, you are way better than any machine. Your brain inside your head is way better than any machine ever at learning and adapting. There's something called neuroplasticity, which you should check out. But your brain essentially grows in all these different directions as long as you practice them, as long as you're flexible and adapt to them. So flexibility, adaptability, but then staying one step ahead of the curve, right? Whatever your field is, rather than looking at automation and artificial intelligence as a risk, it's more about looking at how we can make the most of it. So for example, at our office, we've already started trying out, being prompt engineers ourselves to direct the artificial intelligence. We've started training artificial intelligence in Swahili so that it learns, so that we're the ones kind of feeding this information, and we're not just waiting for them to come and take our jobs. We're the ones who are kind of being flexible, adaptable, and constantly, curiously learning. So it still boils down to those skills that we talked about: the critical thinking, the creativity, the collaboration, but even more important than all of that, the flexibility and the adaptability. There will be some policy implications. I don't think that's like, maybe this is not the panel for that. There will be policy implications in terms of like how we might have to pay people to direct all of this, but I think that's a question for another day. Flexibility, creativity, and staying ahead of the curve, thinking how can I make this technology work for me rather than the other way around.
Awesome, thank you. And Amiri, I have seen that you have had your hand up for quite some time. Let's hear your question or your comment. Admin, can we hear from Amiri, or will he have to put his question in the chat? I think he'll have to put it in the chat. Okay, Amiri, please can you drop your question in the chat and we can make sure that we answer it. I know it's been pending for a while, so I'm sure it's a fantastic one. In the meantime, we have two more questions. We have an anonymous question coming from somebody. He or she is saying, hello, I am passionate about digital marketing field and my great desire is to become the best coach of it. So I need to know how the audience will accept my training without a tangible evidence that I know better on it. Would anybody like to respond to this?
Can I do that? Can I take that?
Sure, take it.
So if you could just repeat it again.
It says, I am passionate about digital marketing field and my great desire is to become the best coach of it. So I need to know how the audience will accept my training without a tangible evidence that I know better on it. So I want to coach somebody, but how would people think that I am, a thought leader on this if they have no evidence of it?
First, I think is to develop their own materials. Mm-hmm. So as the executive director of European Business Group, I got a lot of DMs of someone saying, I can help your organization, I can do this, I can do that. And the one thing that I did is to look onto their own pages, just to see what is the output that they have. And there was nothing. So I'm thinking, well, if you can't do that for yourself, how are you going to do that for me and my organization? So to me, that was an absolute killer for most of the people that were really proclaiming themselves to be the best, I can help you do this, they have a good sales pitch. And in this type of stuff where anything digital, people can go back and trace or look up or Google you and, and check up on you and stuff like this. It's not possible to just have a good sales pitch. It's not enough. Actually, it's good to have it, but it's not enough. Your product has to speak for itself. And if you are as good as you say you are, then you should be able to put output out there that relates. And the simplest way to do that is to start, putting on these placards on the information that you know. And with this, you will get your own engagement growing and people knowing that you're a thought leader on this particular topic. And from there, your business will grow from that. I think a lot of young people are looking to do the opposite. You're doing a lot of marketing for a product you haven't even developed. You know the knowledge, you have it's not like a degree these days. That's, oh, by the way, you guys, I have a degree in medicine. Can I have a job as a doctor? And we trust that you are a good doctor and you learned because your degree tells us that you're learned. It's different with digital marketing. It's different with anything digital these days because I can go up and check up on you. So write about it, talk about it, do videos, write-ups, do placards, do these social media cards, develop a good social media following, because this is where your credibility is as well, because unfortunately, the more followers you have, it means the more people agree to your product or your output. So from this, then you can start making money out of this because you are somewhat acclaimed social media guru in this topic. So again, knowing that you are and wanting to be great is not enough. Develop materials, as Princely had said, write stuff. He said you get to become a good communicator from the writing that you're doing, and also you get to become a good thinker from the writing that you're doing. So write up more. And from this, you might see something wrong here and there, but at least we will see that you've done the work. And for those people that you're approaching to do the work for them, please have some sample of your work with it. So that if someone is coming out to someone and says, I'm good at this, I need proof that you're good at this. If I'm going to put my money down, I need to know you're good at it. And this is why when you're applying for normal jobs, we put references. Because it will be the references that will saying, oh yeah, they're really good at this and this 1, 2, 3, 4. And many times they go back to your previous employer. This is the particular reason. Just because it's digital does not mean that people cannot do that. So your work will be your previous employment, I guess. Your clients also will speak for you. And once you have this set up, then ask for recommendations from your clients. Your word of mouth is really, really the most important thing. A word of mouth is a major marketing thing, because yes, you're a digital marketer, but you also need someone to market you. So market yourself and put that skill to yourself so that skill can then, bring you business.
Thank you so much, CK. And I see Cindy has also commented it on the chat, and she has raised some good points. Cindy, could you also just quickly go through your points in case somebody missed your comments in the question and answer box?
Thank you. It's most essentially what CK also already just put very succinctly. Show, don't tell. There's a difference between saying I can do something and showing that you can do something. One of the things that I actually did when I was trying to transition from a founder into product management without having officially had a product management role is I would look for opportunities, like some of the job descriptions on LinkedIn for the companies I really wanted to work at. And then I would go on their website and I will see, just read through, go check out the product and stuff. And I will see if I was the product manager for this thing, what changes would I make? Then I would prepare case studies, really delightful case studies, if I do say so myself, and put together. Sometimes it'll take me 3 days, sometimes a week. And I would put so much heart and effort into it. And I will just really detail some of the changes that I would make some of the recommendations, I would show my work, you know. I don't know if you guys have this thing in math, like show your work, even if your final result is correct, but you haven't shown your work and how you came to the answer, you get a wrong for it, right? It was kind of the same thing in our education system in Kenya, right? So what I would do is I would show my work. Where did I get the data for this? You know, what is informing my system of thinking, and putting together something really nice. And when I was submitting my job application, I was submitting together with a case study that I'd put together, so much so that if someone is looking at it, they're like, okay, I can definitely see a product manager here. So that thing is really helpful twofold. One, it really helped me think like a product manager, and in this case, as a digital marketer. You can create your own project, digital market it, showcase how it moved from step A, non-existent, to step E, where you got X number of people, impressions on Twitter or Facebook or whatnot, where if it was the aim was to make money, show how you managed to make it make money, right? And if you chose Facebook over Twitter, show your reasoning. Why did you choose Facebook over Twitter? If you decided that your target market was, you know, young people living in Dar or Kampala, show your reasoning why you chose that over, you know, people living in South Africa, in rural South Africa, perhaps. You know, show your work so that when you're presenting, you know, 2 or 3 projects to someone and like, yo, 3 months ago, this is where this project was, you know, you can see what I did and I took it here. And you have 2 or 3 of those to show. When someone sees the result of your work, even if something was a failure, if you're able to explain why it failed and what you could have done differently, you know, it's a lot easier to back something that you can prove they tried, it worked because of XYZ, or it didn't work because of ABC. That's how you put your money where your mouth is, right? Because any person can go and take a digital marketing course on Udemy and say, I am a digital marketing expert. But you have to set yourself apart in some way between you, someone who merely read it, and someone who can actually apply it enough to warrant a paycheck, you know? First you learn, then you earn. You know, it's okay for it to take some time, but also don't wait until you're the best in the world to start, right? You know, there's a balance there. That was my balance
there.
Yeah.
That's a great answer. I mean, build the skill, nurture the skill, learn how to present the skill in a way that other people can consume what you've learned. And I think that in itself is also a very powerful skill to be able to build. I'm going to take one last question from the audience as we get ready to wrap up. I mean, it's been magic this afternoon, but we don't have that much time left. And we have some questions from Mona. And Mona would like to hear from a very kind of practical standpoint, you know, how are social enterprises running in Tanzania? What are the ABCs? I think this is a great one for you, Ian.
So I would say that maybe Mona did not hear me, but I will repeat again. So in 2018, according to the laws we cannot have social enterprise. So we had to choose either to be an NGO or a company. And that's why at TAI we have an NGO and also we have a company. But I'm told there are some things that are going on trying to go back so that NGOs can also be social enterprise. But as we speak now, you have to choose either to be an NGO or you have to be a company. You cannot be both for now. So that's reality, and that's what is happening now in our country.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And before I wrap up, start the wrap up of this session, I've been asked from DOT. It would be great if all the panelists can please share some of your top learning platforms. You can drop the links in the chat just so that we have them for posterity. So please do keep dropping your top learning platforms. And so, I mean, we have about 20 minutes left. And I know we've had a great afternoon, but let's just kind of start to bring it all back together as we get ready to say goodbye. And I have a question for all the wonderful panelists. You have all made some great achievements in your careers and your work up until this point. So if you could jump on a time machine to speak to yourself when you were about to start your career, what is one piece of advice that you would give your younger self? And perhaps let's start with Cindy.
Okay, so what would I tell myself when I was starting? Sorry, for some reason it keeps blinking. Okay, good. I think a big part of it will be just trust the process. There was a time I was overly pressurizing myself to figure out things, figure this now instantly and all that. But trust the process. Know that it's okay to have several different careers in one lifetime, right? I'm a product manager now, but in 5 years, I could be an interior designer. Then I could be a bartender, right? And after that, then I could be the governor of Nairobi. Who knows? Don't limit yourself. You can't change your mind so long as you're strategic about it and you're willing to learn and do what it takes, right? Allow yourself the benefit of living different lives in one life. Finally, and this essentially goes for young people who are maybe early 20s. I don't know if there are any of those here, but a big part of seeing what works for you is on trying many different things and seeing something you can commit to for maybe around 5 years, right? Don't optimize too soon. And just because you went to school for one thing doesn't mean that that has to be like your whole life, your whole personality. It's not a noose around your neck, right? Think of it like a map that you could follow, or you could toss it out and get another map. And how do you get another map? Talk to the people who work in industries that could interest you or fascinate you and find out what it is like working in those roles, right? And finally, I understand it's a privilege to be young and to have limited responsibility. I technically don't have any kids. So if I did, it would be a bit more of a struggle to wake up, like set from 6 to 8, I have uninterrupted learning time. So if you're in a situation like mine, it's a privilege. Recognize that and go with it. If you have kids, it means you just need to make more sacrifices, right? So, because that's just how life is, right? If you have to wake up earlier, then you wake up early. If you have to stay down later, you stay down later. If your lunch hours or your learning hours, then you do that. But there are a lot of little privileges that if you're able to recognize and leverage, then you can move several steps forward, right? If you're living with your parents, that's an absolute privilege. You don't have to worry about rent or food. All you have to do is exist. And if you can exist while learning, that's a massive big deal. If you're married and you have a partner who has a job, right? Meaning if you lost your job, it's at the end of the world, you have someone to hold you for a bit. That's a privilege. So being able to recognize the little privileges that you might have that you can leverage so you can buy yourself time and learn something new, explore something, live a little recklessly with the hope for glory, right? Make more mistakes. If you're able to leverage that, then it's a big deal, right? At the end of the day, you can have excuses or you can have progress, but you can't have both. So find out which one it is you're going to choose. And I keep telling myself that every day too. So I'm also telling that to me,
Asante sana, Cindy. Princely, what would you tell your past self?
First, I like how Cindy says she technically doesn't have any kids. She only technically doesn't have kids. I don't know what that means. Anyway, I've been sharing a few things, some of the resources Two of the resources I've shared there are resources that either I founded or I convened. One is a community called Fikiri, at We Are Fikiri, if you check us out. It's an invite-only community, but if you tell me we met here, I might consider you. And then the other one is open to everyone. It's called the Honor Stories Creator Network. And we have over, how many do we have? 290. We have 290 people, 290 plus people on the Honor Stories Creator Network. So if you're a creative professional or want to learn creative skills, or what I mean here is illustration, writing, photography, videography, artificial intelligence, extended reality, virtual reality, etc., all like different creative skills, I've put in a link to our forums. We offer trainings, we connect you to jobs, we add you to our list for jobs as well, because we believe, you know, that's where young people can get skills and can actually, you know, not just get skills, but they can be paid for the work that they're doing. So check those stuff out. I've also put in Farnham Street. This is a phenomenal website. Just Google them, Farnham Street, on mental models, and another one called School of Life. I play their games, I buy their books, I do everything. They're phenomenal. I watch their YouTube. So those are the resources. Now, let me go to Jane's question on what I would tell a younger version of Princely. When I was finishing university 11 years ago now, I had, you know, all these different ideas of what my life could you know, become. I know I don't look like I finished university 11 years ago, but when around that time, the main thing that I think I would tell myself is to just start. If you have an idea in your head, doing is more important than thinking. Thinking is extremely important. Planning is extremely important. Direction is extremely important. Perhaps it's fundamental, but you gain direction, you gain clarity of thinking in action. It is action that clarifies thinking and not the other way around. We often think that we can think our ways into the solutions of our lives, but it's actually a combination of us thinking, doing, and then clarifying our thinking because we are iterating, right? So the biggest lesson I have learned by starting Honor Stories, by starting Fikiri, by doing, you know, getting all the clients that we've worked with, and we've worked with pretty much all the big names in industry and in development in Tanzania, it's only because we started. Honor Stories literally started because I made a video in my bedroom about Tanzania moving its capital city to Dodoma. And after making that video, I made another one. And after making that video, my partner made another one and another one and another one. And then slowly, now we're employing people. And then slowly, oh, now we have an office. And then slowly, now we have a network with 290 you know, young people in it. So the main thing I would say, start, just start. Action will clarify thinking. Right now you're thinking, oh, you know, how can I start, or how can I? And too often, once you get that initial hurdle, iko kitu kinachokustopisha kuanza. Inawezekana ni hela, inawezekana ni haujui watu, kuna mtu ameuliza, I want to become a trainer, how do I do it? You start by training people. You know, write about it, invite a few people, train them. And the final thing that I would tell myself, which is something that I think I've succeeded at reminding myself and doing, is that you don't have to wait for other people to kind of give you the validation for your ideas. Your vision, if I go the Christian route here, I'm going to take the Christian route here. Forgive me, CK. If I take the Christian route here, there's this idea that when God was giving you the call for your life or the vision for your life, it was not a conference call, right? God was calling you as an individual. And so you don't need a validation from everybody that your vision is right, or that the ideas that you have in your head, or that you're a great trainer, or any of that. You've got to actually just be honest with yourself, and start. Just start where you are with what you have. If you want to become a trainer on digital marketing, then first you have to build credibility in the field. And when you're building credibility in your field, you don't build credibility just by talking. You build by doing. Action clarifies thinking, not the other way around. And remember that it was not a conference call. The calling on your life is yours. You do not need external validation that your ideas are right. You can just start. That's what I would tell myself.
And that is something I will not forget. It was not a conference call. Thanks for that nugget, Princely. CK, what would you tell your past self?
Well, first, I'll forgive Princely for whatever I meant to forgive him for. And then, what would I tell myself, my past self? It's okay. I would tell myself, it's okay. For the longest time, as a young person, I had to work really hard to get the experience needed. I finished college ages ago during the recession. And at that point, there were no jobs. The only people hiring, I remember, were the KPMGs and all these accounting firms. And the biggest jobs at the time were for, the accounts to close companies and stuff like this. So those of us with sort of international relations, law degrees, sort of social, those types of degrees that don't quite tell you who you are, like doctor, lawyer type of thing, we were lost. And I remember thinking, what was this? Range Rover was at a graduate recruitment, and Range Rover Jaguar was recruiting at the time, and of course, accounting. And at the time, the biggest sort of inclination to apply there was that they were telling people that, oh, when you apply with us, you get a chance to get a new car. And I thought, geez, that's interesting. Surely I'll try that. And we got to the point of, what's your main motivation for applying for this job? And I thought, well, a new car? And that is definitely not the best motivation to do. So I will tell myself, it's okay. Honestly, we move so much after, especially for those in the education system. You work so hard, you study so hard, then you go out there, start looking for a job, and there are no jobs. Create the jobs. Before you go on the panic of unemployment and not having a job, and you get to that point where you're really tattering because you just can't find anything to do, create it, do it. If you're seeing that, a lot of young people that I've interviewed across time are, what would you like to do, or what would you be doing after this? Is I'll start my own business. But the businesses they're thinking of is Kibander here, to sell this, to sell that, there's so many options. So for me, I would tell myself, it's okay. It's going to be okay. Trust the process. All the jobs or the careers that we've had, for many of us who've had quite versatile mix of it, has not been anything planned. We've landed into our jobs, actually, for many of us. And I think for many of the young people, they too will land onto their jobs. From one experience builds to the other, and next thing you know, you are where you are and you love it. So take it easy, take one step at a time. Nothing is planned or given, but also take time to learn with what you have. A lot of the young people I've come across, they're like, oh, but I don't have this. I say, work on your English. Really, work on your English. What? No, it goes down to communication. Your Swahili is already perfect. And many of us in the jobs that we are in, our English isn't. And it's a determining factor, unfortunately. And for those of us who agree or disagree, but it's the most widely spoken language in the world. So when it's good, it helps you and it helps with your communication. And working on that doesn't mean you need to go to British Council and all that English course, no. Practice speaking it with your friends, with your buddies, and on the mirror, if you know, in front of a mirror, if you need to. Simple things that do not cost you money. Read newspaper. You can't afford to buy books. Read anything that comes in front of you. Knowledge is not about a prescribed book on leadership, on this, on that, you know, these fancy big names and all this sort of stuff. Knowledge is from taking in what is around you. There isn't a prescription for that. So gather as much as you can from it and go with the process. It does work out in the end. That's what I'll say.
Fantastic, CK. Awesome nuggets from you this afternoon. And last but not least, Ian, if you could go back to when you were just about to launch your career, what would you tell your past self?
Thank you, Jane. I think basically, as you asked this question, I've been thinking, and to be honest, I feel grateful for the journey I've taken. And I think the most important part that I wish I would have known is something I actually posted like 3 days ago. When we just started the organization, we were comparing to ourselves to organizations like UNICEF, Save the Children. And when you open your document, you'll see structures, you'll see strategic plans. And I remember we spent almost 2 weeks without sleeping, trying to create, almost a month, trying to create those things so that we are at a certain level. And in my journey, I've learned that those are not hard things. I've learned those are not hard things. I've learned the hard things is you wake up in the morning, you receive a great email, and you have to go to do presentation, and you have to do it well. I've learned that at the end of the day, it's always about people. It's always about the goal. So when I was reading the inbox, I saw one of the person ask the question when we were talking about people should have the desire to learn new skills and keep growing. And someone asked a question, how do we keep people motivated? And for me, I think the answer is very simple. It's like people have to take responsibility for their own growth. Because today they will say books are expensive. Tomorrow they will say it's too noisy in Dar es Salaam, they cannot read, or they cannot learn, or they cannot, because we have so much tools that if you want to learn and be someone better that you want to be, someone you want to be, you can be, as much as you take that responsibility. And I think one thing I would also want to request for the organizers for next year, we should try to, there's one person I've never heard him talking, but because we're talking about digital technology, I actually really want to hear him saying his story. The guys who started Max Malipo, these are guys who started getting into digital technology when it was worse than now, and they did it. And for me, as someone who believes in learning from people who have gone already the journey, it's important to learn from them. So I think I will advise myself, maybe I would have done more research to know how people were able to do from harsh conditions. These days we are talking about reading books. If you go to Telegram, there are so many groups, there are free books. If you go to YouTube, there are so many books, audio books. When it comes to someone who wants to learn, we are at a better place than ever. So I will say it's upon young people to take that responsibility and do it. And it's also important to know how to prioritize what you want to do, because as I said, I thought at the beginning, it's about the structures, it's about hiring the team, but I didn't know at the end of the day, it's about that sustainability. That moment you need to know when to say no, or you need to take off and take care of your mental health and go on with the journey. Those are key skills that someone has to learn how to prioritize. I see sometimes young people are everywhere. Today they are talking about history, they are doing this, and then they are shallow everywhere, and they are not known for a certain particular skill that is useful to them. You know, if you are everywhere, you are nowhere. So it's important to also know how to keep focus, because with focus, it helps to grow your skills and your understanding on things. So I would like to say that at the end of the day, every young person has to take responsibility for their own growth, because if you look for excuses, we'll always get excuses for not having a space for you for personal and professional growth. Tomorrow we'll talk about no job. The other time we'll talk about police. Then we say we don't have strong internet. But we should also remember Max Malipo did all this when we did not have bundles, but they are able to give service to everybody in this country because they are trying to solve different social problems. Thank you, Jane.
Awesome. I see time is up. We're over by a minute. It's been a fantastic afternoon. Just to summarize some key nuggets as quickly as I can that have come out from today is: 1, take the time to learn. Nurture your skills, build the skills, be able to showcase your skills, but also don't forget the basics. Remember to communicate, remember to network, remember to fine-tune your writing and your speaking skills, but most importantly, surround yourself by the people and the things that will help you build a growth mindset. Everybody, thank you so much for this afternoon. Thank you for a fantastic session. A round of applause to our wonderful panelists, Princely, CK, Cindy, and Ian. You guys have been amazing. And just drop your LinkedIn in the chats because I can see everybody's looking for a mentor. So let's use this moment to also connect with each other. And for our colleagues at DOT, thank you for putting this together. We have had a call specifically from the young people of Gaeta asking for us to have sessions like this in their town. So everybody, asante, have a wonderful afternoon, and thank you for joining us. And panelists,
bye-bye. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you so much, Jane. It was amazing.
Thank you, guys. You guys made it easy, huh?
No, it was really good. Thank you. Thank you for keeping time, Jane.
That's an important skill to nurture.
Indeed, indeed.
You're a pro, Jane.
I see a lot of people are asking for mentorship and training. I've put in the link for our creator network. We offer free training. Don't know about the mentorship, but you know, we can chat there. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Awesome.
Bye. Pleasure meeting everyone. Bye.
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 Yes. Asante ni sana DOT for bringing us all together.
Okay. Great.
Thank you, Jane.